Hi guys, my name is Tom Antos, and today I wanted to show you guys how to get the best quality out of your videos when exporting it, out of your editing software, whether it be for YouTube or some other use. And the example I'm going to show you right now is going to be in Adobe Premiere, but these are just general, again, tips and tricks that you can use in any editing software. So first, when you're starting off creating your project for your video, you should try to find out what format it is that your camera shoots in, and you kind of want to make sure that you stay in that same format. When I say format, I mean the resolution, the frame rate, the aspect ratio, the pixel aspect ratio, those kinds of things. If you're not sure what it is, then you can still create, for example, just a temporary kind of a project, and then you can load in your footage to kind of check what it is. So right now I'll just create this just project, call it number one. Click OK. This is an Adobe Premiere, and let's say I'm not sure, what my footage is exactly. Let's say I bought a new camera, and I'm not sure what format it shoots in. So I'll just create any kind of a timeline here. I'll just call it, test timeline, and click OK. And here we have the new project in Adobe Premiere, and I'm just going to import my footage. So I'm going to go. Let me see. Maybe I'll use examples. Some footage from this video I shot for Battlefield 3. Maybe this one too. Just click open. And when I have my footage here, I can sort of look at the clips, and again, depends on your editing software. But in Premiere, for example, you can get the basic information just by sort of selecting the clip here in your project bin. So here I can see that this clip has been recorded on 1920 by 1080. Up here, where in the brackets where it says 1.0, that just simply means that the pixels are not squeezed. That they're square pixels. The aspect ratio is 1:1. If it was, for example, 0.9 or 0.7, then you know that it's being vertically being squeezed by to 90%, and then it's being stretched out. So, for example, if you're shooting HDV footage, like on the older HDV cameras that are used, usually the mini DV tapes, those will be, I believe, at 1.23, if I'm not mistaken, because that footage is actually being squeezed horizontally. But anyway, so if it's 1.0, then you know that's a square pixel, and it just tells me the frame rate. It's at 23.976 frames per second, the audio compression, and then the length of the clip. If in Final Cut, I believe you can just right-click on it and click Properties, which will show you more information about the clip, which you can also do in Adobe Premiere. And so up here it shows you pixel depth, the file size, again, your resolution, that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through a bunch of these clips and see if they're all more or less the same. Yeah, they're all 1920 by 1080. Oh, and then here we have one clip at the end that's actually 1280 by 720. And I'm just going to look at this clip, and oh, okay, that was just a shot that I got of the actor running that I wanted to use as a slow motion clip. And so, since the 7D records slow motion, meaning it records 60 frames per second, or 59.94 frames per second, but it records it at a lower resolution. So what I would do in this situation is, since most of my clips are still at 1080 resolution, I would still create my project now at the resolution that most of my clips are at. And sort of that's the first tip I would say. Always make sure that when you're editing your timeline of your project is exactly the same, has exactly the same settings, or the same resolution and frame rate and aspect ratio as the footage that you originally shot on your camera. So so in my case it would be 1920 by 1080 at 23.976 frames per second and square pixels, or 1.0 aspect ratio. And now you might ask me, for example, well, what do I do about this shot that's actually a lower resolution? Well, I mean, if I had a lot of shots that were, let's say, shot at 1280 by 720, and then let's say maybe 2 or 3 clips that were shot at 1080, then even though I have some clips that are higher resolution, overall most of the video is still shot at a lower resolution. So then I would actually use the specs, and the resolution from the clips that for most of the clips that I'll be using in my final video. But since in this video most of it will be 1080p, and and I want to get the best quality, it's best to do the whole project at 1080p, and only for those one or two shots the resolution or the quality will be downgraded a little bit. But since that shot might end up being like a split second in the final video, it doesn't really affect the overall quality of the video. So that's sort of the I would say the little tip that you should follow. Now there might be some projects where you shoot everything, the whole video, with one camera and all the same settings, and if that's the case, then you don't have to worry about it. Go set up your project according to the format that you shot it in. And like I said, in here most of the clips are 1920 by 1080, so that's the project that I'll be working in. So in Premiere I just go click on File, New, Sequence, and then I click there's actually a preset for digital SLRs, and this was shot on a 720 on a 7D. So I go to 1080p, digital SLRs 1080p, and then I choose the 24 frames per second project 1080p, which if you actually look at the specs here, it's actually 1920 horizontally and 1080 vertically resolution at 1.0 aspect, and the frame rate is 23.976. Not actually 24 frames per second, which is exactly what I want. So I'll just click this, and I'll just call this, for example, my edit video. And here I have a new timeline that's in the correct resolution. You can again check it up here. And now when I just drag and drop my clips in here, for example, you'll see that they just fit perfectly. Like the scale and the aspect ratio, everything works, because my timeline, or my project is already set up properly for my video, and I don't really have to do anything, or worry about it. Because I can just drag all these clips, select a little clip here. They fit perfectly. Now, when I place this footage that was shot at 60 frames per second, let me actually change the frame rate. So I'll go Modify, Interpret Footage, and just change the frame rate to 23.976 because I want it to be in slow motion. Now, when I take this clip is actually lower resolution. So when you look at it, see, it doesn't quite fill in the frame. There's different ways you can do this. In Adobe Premiere, the simplest way is to just simply right-click on it and go, where is that? Scale to frame is the option. And what this will do is basically will scale either horizontally or vertically or both, in order to just fit the footage to the scale of our timeline or of our editing project. So I can just click like this, and like you see, it right away fills in the frame. And right here you won't really see the difference in quality, but I mean, in reality, this shot is actually a lower resolution than the rest of these shots. So in the final video, if you look at it, on a big screen, and you were to really look at it up close, then you could see that the pixels are not as sharp and that kind of stuff. But once again, since it's only one little shot in in my whole video, it doesn't make sense for me to do the video at 720p resolution. So it's still it's a good idea in this case to scale up the footage. Now another way you can do this, for example, if I again drag this clip here, another way you can do this is if I select this clip and I go to Effects Controls, Motion, and then adjust the motion, the scale, the overall scale of this clip, and you can just drag it, and then I believe it would be like 150 to just perfectly fit it into this frame. So I put the scale to 150, and again, depends on what your footage is or what the resolution and frame rate. You might have to adjust those settings differently, but that's what I would do. And then that's pretty much it. You do your whole video like this, and make sure that you once again that you're editing the whole video in this kind of resolution with the same kind of settings like your original footage. And then for the once you do your color correction, or your effects and all that stuff, for the final video, when you're exporting, again, you want to make sure that you're using the same settings, the same specs as you used for both your timeline and that your original video clips are in. So if I select this sequence here and I go Edit, Export Media, and in Adobe Premiere we have different settings. So let's say I want to export it to TIFF sequence or H.264 codec or MPEG-2. I can just click on it. For example, here click MPEG-2, and I have different presets, right? So I can go HDTV 1080p resolution, and the reason why I'm going with this is again because my final video, my original video, I mean, was recorded at 1080p, and that's what my timeline is. So I'll look at it up here, just make sure it's the same resolution, 1920 by 1080. That's correct. Frame rate is a little bit off, which it won't make that much of a difference, but if you want to make sure that you're not skipping any frames or anything like that, especially if your video is extra long, then just change it here. So change the frame rate from 24 to 23.976, since that's the actual frame rate that we shot the video at. And then the aspect ratio up here, as you can see, pixel aspect ratio is widescreen 16 by 9 or basically 1.00. Once again, if you had different pixel aspect ratio, you can select the settings here for the most common aspect ratio presets. And that's it. Here's just your compression and settings. And those compression settings will just simply like the minimum bitrate, target, and maximum bitrate. All that they mean is just how many megabytes you're willing to accommodate for for each second in your video clip. So if you want a really a small file size, then you might want to adjust these settings. And for example, for a 1080p video, I would not go lower than 4 megabytes per second for the minimum, and the maximum I would say you can probably do with about 10 megabytes per second. If you want to do a slightly better quality, then like you see these settings, for minimum would be 4, maximum would be almost 20 megabytes per second, and the target bitrate, which is what most of your video will be at, it will be 15 megabytes per second. Once again, different editing software will give you different options. In Premiere, it's really nice because you can control all these settings. And Sony Vegas, I don't know if you can actually go as well in detail when exporting your footage, but at the same time there's a lot of nice presets there, just as you have in Final Cut. So I wouldn't worry about it. I would just choose one of the presets that best fits your video. And then once you have those settings selected, and here just select where we're gonna output this video, and click save and just export it. And then once that's done, then I can click here and you can watch the final video. And it's, as you can see, this video clip, which is about 17 seconds long, it turned out to be 33 megabytes big, and it's at 1920 by 1080 at really high compression settings, so it should be good quality. And I'm not sure if you can see it up here, since it is YouTube, and on top of that YouTube will add extra compression to it, but yeah, it looks really good up here on my monitor. Another thing, a tip that for example, that I can tell you is, if you're exporting your video specifically for YouTube and you're using Adobe Premiere, then there's a lot of cool little presets that Adobe has. Here we go to format, and since YouTube videos are actually in Flash format, which is it's a container, I believe, that uses the H.264 compression now. So basically you can use one of these presets up here, which is H.264 selected, and you'll have actual presets for example, for like Apple TV, HDTV, stuff like that. And you also have one for YouTube Widescreen HD. This one is actually, it's a preset only done for 720p resolution. I don't know why, but you can quickly change that to other settings. So if you click on that, you'll see right away it will basically scale it down to 1280 by 720p resolution, which is at the perfect kind of settings for YouTube. So target bitrate and maximum bitrate are already selected for you, that work well for YouTube. And if you were to export this video at these settings, it will look very good on YouTube, because YouTube will not really have to recompress the video. And anyways, and then they have other presets up here too for other formats, such as MPEG, MPEG-2, like I said, QuickTime, etc. And then in these sub presets here. You can select again the format that you'd like. So they do have a really good quality HDTV 1080p resolution for the H.264 codec, and again it's really high quality. Its target bitrate is around 32 megabytes per second, and maximum bitrate is at 40, which right away will I'll tell you, basically means that it's gonna produce a file size that's much bigger than the one that we did before, and I can actually export it just to sort of compare it. The file size, I believe, will be twice as big, or actually no, even more, because the other one was target bitrate was 15. No, it might be around twice the size. So let's see, let's check it out. V1, and I'll change the frame rate again to 23.976. Click export. Alright, and that's done. Let's check it out again. And let's see. Yeah, it's about twice the size. So the MPEG one that we exported before is around 33 megabytes, and this one is 67 megabytes. So it just has a bit more data, kilobytes per second of information there. Alright, so that's it. So remember, just keep in mind what resolution and frame rate and aspect ratio your original video footage was shot at, and you want to try to edit at the same settings and export at the same settings. This way you know that you'll kind of retain the best quality throughout your whole project. Some of the things that I've seen people do sometimes mistakes with is, for example, what they do is let's say they have this footage up here as 1920 by 1080, but when they create their timeline or their video, the video editing sequence project, let's say they'll do it, at 480p, a completely different, let's say, also, aspect ratio. And let's see, what can I do? Let's see, let's say DV NTSC, which is a completely different pixel aspect ratio. As you can see, it's 0.9. It's actually squeezed pixel. And once again, I'll just drag and drop a few of these clips here. And then, as you can see right away, the aspect ratio is totally off. So what they'll try to do is adjust either the scale of it, up here. I'll squeeze it like this, let's say horizontally, and then squeeze it vertically, and it just totally screws up the look of the shot too. Or they'll overall just scale the clip, and then they're wondering why they have black bars already in the video. Or for example, they'll zoom in a bit more to eliminate the black bars, but then they're losing the information on the side. And they'll, for example, export a video like this, and once again, if you look at this sequence, the resolution is only 720 by 480, and on top of that, with a completely wrong aspect ratio and wrong frame rate. And then they'll, for example, want to export it, and they want to export it to, they just click a preset, and they want to, let's say, export it to YouTube Widescreen HD. And I'll just click here and go export. And as you can see, even up here in the preview, you see that it's like that frame rate has to create interlaced frames, because it's actually an interlaced video the timeline. On top of that, it's scaling down the footage, and it's creating artifacts when it's doing that. So all these kind of problems arise, and then even though your final video you end up exporting at 1280 or so by 720p resolution, your video quality will be horrible, because what you've been editing with is much lower. So in a way, it disregards the fact that your original footage was at 1080p. And here you can take a look at it. It's a small file size, for example, but so what when the quality is horrible? This is what it looks like. So as you can see, they're pixelated. It's has artifacts, has also, because it's interlaced footage, and also the framing and stuff like that changes. So those are the kind of problems. So once again, just remember, you keep the same editing and export settings for your resolution and frame rate and aspect ratio as your original video footage was shot in. That's it. Hope this helps you guys, and as always, don't forget to subscribe and rate, comment, and favorite this video. And yeah, check out my channel because I have a lot of other useful little filmmaking tutorials, tips and tricks. Thanks, bye.